And I am very, very excited today, Tina.
Me too.
Because we are going to be talking on polyamorous topic.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I have so many questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess everybody has, or most of the people have.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, thank you for your trust and openness.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
That's the major thing. And can you just take us back? How did it start? How one young girl can enter the world this way?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't always like that, obviously. I mean, I started having the same dream probably that all of us have in the white princess dream. Like you're meeting the one person and you're going to be happy forever. But somehow this pretty much changed when I turned 20 or around early 20s when I met my partner of 10 years that I was with during that transition time. And kind of very early, we started talking about how we actually don't really believe in the one anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think it started more as a philosophical question. And we were always very curious and eager to bend the boundaries of life or of society. And it just felt more like it feels right, or it sounds right, it sounds interesting, and obviously we want to be together, but it was starting as a conversation it wouldn't be the worst if we would be with somebody else or fall in love with someone else, because there was always this perception of us that there is so much love and so much diversity in love that we can share with other people, that it didn't threaten really the love that we had and the relationship that we had. So it was more like an open conversation in the beginning, that it might be an option in the future, and then throughout the relationship, with some events that were happening that were also unpleasant in sometimes, it wasn't always very happily perfect, we decided to open up the relationship first, more as an experiment. And we pretty quickly realized that just opening up the relationship just opening in terms of dating other people, but not being in a serious romantic relationship, that it didn't really suit us, because we always valued depth in people and exploring, a deeper connection than just meeting someone for one time. And we realized, opening the relationship is not really enough. We kind of want more, so we don't want to meet person just one time, but more time. And then it was kind of a natural transition, I would say, into at some point identifying as polyamorous, because that's how we lived in our relationship.
And how does one start the conversation? Because I think lots of people are I can imagine it feels weird. I know lots of people have an issue even to talk about, I don't know, the threesome with their partner, or maybe something more I don't know, it's a deeper, maybe more, let's call it adventurous topics. And and I think people just a little bit threatened, not secure, they're so afraid what the other one will say.
Yeah.
So they're I think the question that pops up a lot is how do I start the conversation? I
know that there is. So I wish that in general, in relationships, we had the tools and the confidence to speak up for all kinds of different topics, not only that, but to just be more authentic. And I think sometimes, at least for myself, that's how it was. I didn't really know myself what I truly wanted. I was maybe just curious and wanted to talk about it, but it wasn't worth risking that the other person would respond negatively or feel threatened. So I think that if you're truly aligned with what you want and what your desires are, or if one of your values is simply this open communication, open-mindedness, then there shouldn't be a wall or anything holding you back from speaking up with your partner. For us, that was the case. So I didn't really have to think so much of how to bring it up. It was a very natural conversation, because we were very open-minded already together. I would say for somebody who would like to bring it up but doesn't really know how, I can just honestly say there is no right way to do it. I mean,
you just do it.
You just have to do it, exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, in communication tools, you can prepare the person that there is something you'd like to talk about, or it can be a very natural evolution. I think that very much depends on the personalities also, how that will work out.
Yeah.
But there is no easy way around it, because if you're already not able to speak up what you would like to discover or talk about it, then the whole concept of polyamory is going to be very difficult, because you have to be so open and honest already in the whole like relationship concept. Without it, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just have to go through it.
You just have to go.
Yeah.
And another question that popped in my head was, when even just accepting the fact, because I think from like a selfish point of view, like when you're talking for yourself, like I would like to see other people, it's like I'm so fine, you know. But like when your partner should do it, it can be a little bit different, because I think there is like a jealousy and ego and like lots of different stuff, and I only can imagine how secure one have to be, so you don't feel threatened.
Yes.
On this topic,
Yeah.
how did you know? Did you even felt threatened?
Yes, totally. I mean, for me, it kind of helped that I myself felt secure in exploring connections with other people, because I could feel how this wouldn't change anything about how I felt with my partner. So it was kind of this moment of realization that it's possible. So, and because I felt that it's possible, I have trusted in this past relationship, also my partner, that it's possible, because also very big part of that trust was that we were so open in talking about everything. So, and every step of the way we had really open communication, not only about the logistics or like practical things that are important, but really deep conversations of how we are developing emotionally, if there are feelings of jealousy coming up, and then looking at them not in this judgmental way, because inevitably it will be difficult and you will experience moments of jealousy. I think that's just the most human thing we can experience, because we have a big ego and it takes a lot of work to transcend the ego. So for me it was interesting to explore at which point throughout this relationship I had moments of jealousy, and why they were triggered. Because sometimes I was triggered with one partner that I was seeing because he had a casual encounter with another woman that made me feel insecure about my body, because maybe of the type of woman that it was, or in another moment if my primary relationship, let's call it that way, in that relationship he started dating someone more seriously, or they went on a date that I really wanted to experience as well, then I was jealous because I felt left out emotionally, because I felt deprioritized. So there was always different aspects of jealousy, how they were triggered, and it was more exploratory to observe and like, okay, now like this insecurity of mine came through, why is that? And just reflect about it. And I think that this reflection, because there is a toxic trait to reflection, which I really want to mention, that I reached a point after being 5 years in that journey that I was, I think, overly reflective. And that's also not good, because I felt like I had to deal with everything on my own, and there was no reason, or I had to be able to transcend these feelings of jealousy or insecurity with myself, because I've had already so much experience. I should be not feeling this anymore. So it became more of a performative act, this ability to reflect. But I think it's less than 50% of the work. I think most of the work is actually within the couple to communicate why am I feeling jealous, not being judged for it, and also being heard in ways that I can really feel maybe even taken care of in some way. So if I can't get rid of this feeling of jealousy, or if I really don't want my partner to go on this specific date, then also being heard and come to an agreement how we can, or how he can meet me halfway, or even, make sure that I'm feeling fine for the moment. That doesn't eliminate my own work of reflection, but I think what I've been forgetting maybe sometimes in this, which was 5 years overall of polyamory, that there was a union between us, that we also had to work through things together and make room for each other in these things. And for us, it was first, it started as a union, but then it developed more and more into this more individual journey, because we were so good at it already to reflect and move through these negative emotions. And that, yeah, it's like a two-sided sword or coin, yeah.
Well, first of all, like, I can only imagine, like, once, because I can see, like, going through it together, I think it's already challenging and can be very hard, but doing it on your own, and I think you just have to be so questioning after sometimes yourself, no?
Yeah, it was a big inner voice. I mean, it wasn't always hard, right? Like it also became easier in some ways, because there were boundaries set, and our communication was clear, so it didn't happen all the time, but when it was, the inner voice was very loud in this questioning aspect of, okay, where is this coming from? And you don't want to get over-analyzing either. Because sometimes it's just emotion, right? And that's something I learned in the past year, which was also like part of my journey back into monogamy, that I felt like I've been rationalizing emotions way too much. And not just letting them exist within me or even being expressed, because I was so used to this rational aspect of love and relationship. And that's sometimes, I mean, polyamory can be crazy emotional, and it can be this crazy emotional ride, and it can also sometimes be too rationalized, because you have to be to a certain extent, otherwise you can't manage the logistics and the emotional burden of these complexities, which are huge sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I can only imagine for now, but and first of all, the rationalizing of the emotions, I think it's just because I used to do it a lot too. I mean, definitely not as much as you, but I also used to do it in some way, and then on the other hand, I learned it's just the emotions are just here and they just also go away.
Yes,
most of the time. And sometimes it's just okay to just let them come in and also let them go out.
Yeah,
just take a look at them. Okay, I notice you're here, and waiting for you to go out.
Yes, exactly. That's this big part of the work in moving through emotions in complex relational constellations.
And as you were saying that because you started as a union and then you transcended more into individual stuff. One better question. What was your biggest aha moment that you had? Because I can imagine you had many, but something maybe got stuck with you?
So I can give you two. One was during the journey, maybe one at the end of it. The one during the journey, the biggest aha moment was probably the one around the jealousy and the insecurities, and that I realized it's not my partner's responsibility to behave in a way that I won't get jealous. Like, he cannot anticipate with his acts like what would make me feel jealous. It's just a natural feeling that comes up that is mirrored by an insecurity inside of me that I can address, I can communicate, you can act upon it. It has importance, but it wasn't his responsibility to already anticipate and behave accordingly, right? That was the first one. And the second one was probably at the very end of the journey, where I felt probably already an inner calling of change. And that was the big attachment of my relationship style to my identity and what that meant for me. And that I would love to not make that mistake, or it wasn't really a mistake, but I would like to be very conscious about the fact in the future that we are not here to live or be in relationships because of societal expectations or how others would like to have our relationships, or how even I have myself assigned this identity of being polyamorous, which I was so vocal about and I was so excited and wanted to share about it. And I realized that I don't want my relationship to be such a big part of my identity. Like, it can change, it can be fluid. And that was the biggest learning in the end. And being able to detach from that was really difficult.
Yeah, because it's
to let go.
Yeah, because the one part of you it's just gonna go away.
Yeah, exactly. And it was such a deep part, and I shared these values with great passion, and it made me very happy for a long time. But also it was like I didn't want to hold on to it just because that was what I believed for such a long time. But allowing for change and fluidity, and allowing this transition into something that feels really true to me, more so than the other, even though the other wasn't bad, you know. I didn't stop being in this relationship or being polyamorous because it was per se bad or I had a really bad experience. It was beautiful. But still, I felt this inner calling of making a change.
Yeah, because it is so hard. It can be, I think, so hard, because we sometimes just create our like our own vision, something we just got it's like so stuck onto.
Yes,
and
so
it's like changing your mind. It's like you just, I don't know, like ruining the world, you know. And because when I did it, I was like, I didn't even know. I was like, I don't even know why it was so hard, you know. And because I was just like, because I think I was just like so sure, you know, for a long time. And now I'm like very much on any topic say, I don't know, this is what I think for now, and I'm willing to change my mind when the time will come.
Yes.
So I don't believe in I don't believe in statements anymore.
Yes.
Nothing is.
That's this biggest learning, that nothing is static. And even now I can't tell you if I will ever go back to it or not. Like status quo today is that I can't imagine it, and that I'm very engaged in this journey of depth and with one connection, and it's beautiful. But I also learned to not get stuck with it, because we are simply going through phases of life, and we need to allow ourselves actually to live through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how is the logistic Tina working? Because it can be pretty challenging to manage one.
Yes.
and now managing for you is like, how do you do that? And so there's also like practically, but also emotionally.
Yes.
How does it work?
So, I think logistically, that's the easier question to answer, because it depends very much on the circumstances. For most of these 5 years, there were periods during these 5 years that we have been separated geographically for a certain period of time. So either it was just, it could have been just business travel, it could have been also 2 months or something for a trip. So geographical distance made the whole thing easier to digest for a big part of it. And then the real challenges, logistic challenges, came when we started living in the same city permanently, sharing a flat permanently, and dating other people in this sphere of the same city. So in that case, challenges came up, but we had the tools, like we were able to manage that with a lot of communication. So I think we were just a really tight team at that point to make sure that when we plan our week that we could prioritize both sides or make space for both sides. But what was a bit of a problem for me at that time was that I forgot to plan time for myself. And I think that's one of the key challenges in a concept like this, to not forget yourself and not fall into this people-pleasing mode, because there was always a little shade of sort of a guilt maybe, that if I go spend the weekend now with my partner outside of this primary relationship, then I felt there was always this little guilt that, okay, the next weekend next week I need to extra prioritize or spend time with my other partner to even it out. It's just a natural human feeling, right? No matter how much I was aware of it, it still came up, and sometimes I could balance it and sometimes not so much. It is simply a challenge that one will likely face. To not have any feelings of guilt is hard. And I just forgot myself sometimes. So that's the difficult part.
because you know day has just 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I was working a lot also most of that time, like really a lot. And yeah, there wasn't much free time, of course. And I'm also generally from a type of person, somebody who really values alone time and recharges alone.
Oh, okay.
And I was missing that time for myself a lot, especially when there is an active social life also going on. Then there wasn't much room, and I think it accelerated in this period of living in the same city, also in creating a social circle together, where there were so many things going on that I didn't have before. Before it was a bit easier. My personal circumstances were just a lot focused around my career, around work, and not having so much free time. So it was just either work and partners most of the time. And then the whole thing just became much more intense. And I would say that when that happens, then the emotional challenges come in, to come back to the emotional part. Because then when there is not much time to reflect, or when there wasn't much time for myself to reflect, then the emotional challenges became more overwhelming, because I just I couldn't digest them properly.
Yeah, because I can imagine you'd also need a time so everything can sit down within you now, so you can process it.
Yes.
Because even when you reflect, you need to, like, reflection is one part, but then you also need the digestion. Yes. So it can come like through your mind and body. Yes. And wow. And then with because you had the primary partner, right? Which was like your core relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, core relationship feels better. Yeah. Because I never liked the terminology actually to use this primary, secondary.
But you usually said like that,
right?
I
said it like that now because I haven't found till today a better way of saying it, but you just gave me one. The core relationship, actually. Because this primary, secondary always implied some hierarchy, and it never really resonated with either of us. But we haven't really found the right way to put it either, because obviously there was a certain difference, because we lived together, we built like life together, we had social circle together. So there was a difference to somebody that we had just met, for example, so inevitably. But we nevertheless didn't like this concept of a hierarchy, because we appreciated and valued the different kinds of love and connections so much that we didn't even dare to put it on a pedestal or something, because we really appreciated the connections with someone else, even though this love had a different color, let's say, a different form, shape, whatever, but it was still love for us.
Yeah. When you meet another human being, you or your partner, I guess you were very vocal on that you're already in a relationship. Yeah. How does people like respond to that? Or I can imagine, because I can imagine lots of people would say I'm cool with this, because it might sound kind of cool. Yeah. And also, I can imagine. I know. I see Chandler when he was dating the girl. They was already married, and but then also, like, how do they digest? Does it change? Is it some kind of a process, or? Because I could imagine, like, being the core one is it feels stable, and I think I would feel, I would imagine I would feel privileged, you know. Yeah. But to be the secondary, I think my ego would rush a bit.
Yeah. Very good question. I think there is a little ego involved always, and that's from either side something to overcome. For me, I have made the experience that meeting new people and telling them, and I was always very open and vocal about it, because that was also one of the key challenges, to find somebody who is actually in the concept, like truly understands it and is committed to living this way. I have never, in these 5 years, met somebody who was. So it was usually always people who were curious about it, who have either tried it maybe before, but just half-half, or have tried this open relationship, or have felt that they would love to live in a polyamorous couple or relationship. But nobody who has actually lived these values, who maybe also had another partner. So that was really the very tricky part. I found a lot of people who were very interested. I think it was a kind of an entry point for me also to not have any surface level conversations, because as I said, I really value the depth in a conversation in person, and this topic kind of very quickly brought us into a vulnerable conversation. So also I felt like I was privileged to meet new people on a very different level than if you just start dating with the goal in mind, maybe to find the one, and you have all these expectations. So removing the expectations from meeting someone, an encounter, was, I think, one of the most valuable things I can share with anyone who dates, that you're just meeting someone with such different perception, and you can look at them in their like beauty as they are as humans, because they don't need to fit a certain picture that we have made up, that this our person needs to have these and these qualities. Because I could go on a date and meet someone who maybe I knew we wouldn't fit in a long-term relationship, but I could still really see their beauty in their inner self, or their diversity, or everything. Like there was just zero expectation or judgment. I think that was one of the most beautiful parts of polyamory, that I would love to bring into normal dating world as well. But I also understand that it's not so easy sometimes, because we're longing for connection. And what else did you say about the secondary partnership? I think if it was also like hard, or was there challenges? Yeah,
or maybe
so
for
there
you
are challenges. True. So also I think that there was a lot of challenges on the other side, because ultimately my personal experience was simply that I haven't met someone who was fully on board with the concept. So it was either someone who wasn't fully in. So they were. I could feel there was a certain barrier, because they were keeping me at a distance also, to not get hurt maybe themselves, or because they didn't see this. They didn't want to open up more to really experiencing love or a deeper connection, or somebody wanted to be the one who convinces me of not being polyamorous anymore. Yeah. So I've met these men also. And I didn't know it at that time in the journey, but I learned that towards the end, that I was really, really looking for someone actually to explore the depth of a connection, and not just a surface level. And some part of me has been longing for this for a longer time, and that's the shadow side of polyamory. There's a lot of light sides, but I'm just going to mention the shadow side. That by having multiple connections, you have the beauty of having enhanced emotions, and like so many things are amplified, but also you're diverting your attention, and it will never be possible to go so deep with one person alone if you have multiple partners. That's just not possible. I've experienced it. For me, it's not possible.
Yeah, because I can only imagine, because I used to date a lot. And I used to go on like 5 days per week, and literally on Friday I had no idea who there was. Yeah. Like I didn't remember the connection, like not the connection, but I didn't remember the feeling. I was just like, the one on Monday, cool. You know, I was, because I could not, so I stopped. I had to stop doing it, because
it's very different experience.
Yeah, because it cannot be focused. The one just will always overshadow the ones before. Even the one on the Monday would be the best. I would not, if he would not be like love bombing exceptional. I would just not. I just couldn't compare it on Friday.
Yeah, of course. And it takes time to also open up. I think that it's, you just meet someone on one layer when you meet first, and then another layer. And I think it's about this unlayering of ourselves and staying with each other, even though there are triggers or challenges coming up. And there is a beauty in that also. Absolutely. And there is something that I've always romanticized a little bit maybe about polyamory. That's a benefit, but also has again this shadow side. There is always the light and the shadow to everything. And the shadow side is also that that in the polyamorous constellation that I was, maybe have made it sometimes too easy, in the ways that, if this partner couldn't give me that, then I would meet someone else, or I could experience it with that person. But there is a lot of beauty in actually going through things with one person and working it through. But maybe polyamory for me has made that, has taken out this grind of kind of like investing with one person and moving through things. Especially with this primary relationship, I would say, because it seemed too easy, and there were multiple moments during the journey where I really felt like, okay, it's too easy, like what am I missing here? And a lot of realizations came later, but that's an important shadow side to consider also.
How did it make you feel when you felt that someone would not go deeper, or they let's call it like they would not invest of them that much because whatever they're scared or whatever are the reasons?
It depends, I think, how I felt about that person. Sometimes it was very clear from the beginning that the connection was meant to be just casual or temporarily limited. But if as soon as I felt the resistance of the other person, I would maybe have tried to a few times to get into some vulnerable space. But ultimately, it would always lead to me, I think, closing down and hardening as well. Emotionally, I would say. And that's maybe even an outcome now reflecting over it throughout the years of polyamory, that somehow I feel like I might have hardened a little bit in the emotion too much because of over rationalizing a lot of things. And then when I met somebody last year who changed a little bit this perspective, who opened up suddenly a lot of vulnerability, I also had to figure out first where was it coming from, and it was primarily coming from this fact that he was the first one who was willing to go all in every aspect, kind of, in fully exploring what this can be, despite the fact that I had this primary relationship. And that opened up a whole new side of me that I didn't know even existed because I never had a chance to explore that.
And even if your core relationship?
Also not in the core relationship, no. Because I think we evolve like throughout our whole life, and the relationships are mirrors, and with every new person we meet, it reflects a new side of us. And again, like maybe if I had stayed in this core relationship and we would have been only the two of us, over the time also in a core relationship, in a monogamous relationship, you will inevitably trigger new aspects of yourself because you're just changing throughout life. But since we didn't have that, it was mostly the personal growth that came through meeting other people. And this side of me hadn't opened up somehow. It was totally surprising. I didn't expect it. Very confusing, as you can imagine, but also liberating in some ways to find this new side of me and ability of feeling.
Nice. We'll go back to that, but I would also like to get back to the one thing that you were saying, that first of all, when dating in polyamorous, or let's call it even in maybe open relationships, it can happen that even just by like mentioning something like that, it's just, as you say, it brings so much vulnerability, and it just gives you, I think it's just like Alice in Wonderland, and that you can like really connect with the people and also like get to know people a little. Let's call it like a little easier.
It's true.
And I'm like, every time I hear someone says like, oh, he doesn't check my boxes or he checks my boxes, I'm just like, no. I'm just like, no. Oh, and for example, like I really don't like when someone says, I don't have time to, how do you say it in English? Like to waste my time. So I need to know if this is, and I'm like, you can never know.
You cannot know,
I'm like, you just have to like really just willing to sit and spend
and
time
explore.
with another human being. I'm just like, I cannot imagine there is any test. And I've heard one married couple, I think he is analysts, and she's psychotherapist, and they were even saying that that people claim that I would like to blah blah blah, you know, what kind of a partner I want, or all those kind of things we like to say.
Yeah.
And they were doing kind of like a speed dating and tests, and they found out like actually it doesn't really matter.
I would agree.
Yeah, that what we say doesn't really matter, because in the end it's more about the vibe and or I mean in the first part.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think that comes all down to being authentic, or how authentic can you show yourself when meeting someone a first time. How much are you in your own energy? How true are you when how are you showing up simply? And I think that this gateway of polyamory conversation in the beginning opened this door to the authenticity of other people, because they felt safer in there is no expectation on me actually right now, or there is someone who has a lot of, or who is very vulnerable in sharing what I was sharing, so they felt they could open up as well. And on that level you just get to know someone on such a different way. And as you say, I think it doesn't, like, I never had any boxes. I only have values, and I know that if someone doesn't share value, for example, of mutual respect or spiritual growth, or I don't know, fitness or whatever, like there's certain things that probably will inevitably show up more and more in a relationship. But even those, like, there is very few values that are incompromisable, and most of them is just a matter of us being actually able to see this beauty that I was referring to in the other person, in how they are, in their individuality. And I think that's what we sometimes forget, because we always focus on this picture of these are the boxes, or this is how I want them to mirror me or what I am, instead of actually looking of who they are with all their qualities, with the good and the bad. And that's something we really forget. Yeah,
I absolutely agree. And I even came to I just realized this is gonna be easier. That even because I don't believe in stuff like, oh, he has to be this because I'm like this, you know, and because my parents are like as opposite as it can be, you know. And but I think it's just like the core values and the life goals, you know, it's just I think it's just got them stuck together. And and I think it's just like what you want from your life and what is like really important, you know. So in case you, I don't know, you really want to have a family and blah and these kind of things, then does it matter that she or he is not running, you know? I'm like, Probably not in a long term.
Totally.
So I also support people to see people for they are as a human beings and not just as can you be my partner, you know?
Yeah, totally. I really feel that way as well.
Yeah, and also I can see so much mirroring, you know, and people like making, because just last week I was talking to one friend and he was like, yeah, but she's like too wild on the spirit, and I was like,
that's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, but he was like, yeah, so it's just like doesn't feel like she's no, I'm not sure I want to tame her, and I was like, I was just let it go. I was just like, you have no idea, you didn't ask her, you saw her once. I was like, you're just creating your scenario, and you will just go and find your boxes that will, I was right, now I can check it.
Totally. That's a self-sabotaging behavior.
Absolutely, at its best.
We just want our environment to respond to our inner world and our narrative, and that's then the only thing we will see. So it's also very important in any form of relationship, not only polyamorous, in any form, to do your inner work, like your own work. There is always something you have to do on yourself, and what is your belief system about the other gender? What is your belief system about relationship? And the conditioning around that, and how do you mirror this on the expectations of others? And when you uncover these layers of like, okay, you know, actually all of this doesn't matter, that I learned, and I'm just gonna put it all aside right now and just look at the person in front of me and then see how we get to know each other, how it's gonna work out. It's like such a beautiful experience. And sometimes I felt confused about the fact, or maybe even almost guilty, that I was having this beautiful core relationship. I had a beautiful stability, love, like everything in abundance in many ways. And still I met this incredible man through different ways throughout this journey of being polyamorous, while I had observed like girlfriends in my environment. They were really longing for a connection, and they were ready to devote themselves to a relationship, and they had all these really bad experiences with men who weren't showing up in the right way for them, and really in very hurtful ways. And I feel like a lot of this was rooted in their belief system about men or relationships in general, and that's usually what we're also then attracting from others, because as you said, like you have your own narrative, and when you see like the slightest hinge of that, you can tick that box, you're gonna take it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's a dangerous path.
That is that is sometimes when it happens to me, that because I think I self-sabotage a lot. Now I just try to sit and find out like if it's really valid what I'm scared of. Yeah. Sometimes it works. It's getting better, but it is a journey. Yeah. But back to you, Tina. As also you were saying that you met a man. Yeah, and he was the first one that was willing to go all in. Yeah. Even though you were in another core relationship. Yes. Yeah. And how, because I think thinking backwards is maybe a little bit easier to like, how did it start when you started to realize that maybe you need a change, or maybe you want to change?
It was a long process. So it's not like that there was one point in time where I realized it, but there was certainly the first hinges quite early, I think, after we started seeing each other. I think it was a combination of two things. It was partially my own work, and it was partially also the way he was showing up in the relationship. And last year I've done a lot of personal work with myself in uncovering this let's call it authentic side in me, that I like the slow detachment of the identity, and working with myself, with my body, working with understanding my inner polarities of these masculine qualities I was carrying, how I was showing up in the world as this very structured, rational woman, while I had forgotten to actually listen to my body and to connect to my emotions, like I mentioned in the beginning. So that was a lot of work that I've been doing for myself. That connected me and reconnected me to my body. So I feel like I've also had another access to experiencing a connection. Like it might have been him, it might have been someone else. So there was a lot of my own work in feeling differently with the man, and having this intuition in my body of how I'm connecting with that person. And then there was also him showing up in this like very nurturing way, let's say, and being all in, like being fully committed to being vulnerable. I think that was also a key point in how our love was growing, I think, quite quickly, because we had this shared vulnerability and this growth together, and it was very challenging for him in the beginning to adapt to the whole dynamic of polyamory. And then, pretty soon it just started. I just started noticing, let's say, that something that I felt differently. And the key aspect or moment was that I realized my jealousy that I was experiencing in the thought of him being with someone else was totally different from what I knew before. And I couldn't rationalize it. And I tried so much, all my tools to rationalize it and to move through it and to communicate it. And I just couldn't get rid of it. It was very, very different experience in, I think, the level of commitment I felt to him, and the love in an intensity that I didn't know. So maybe this aspect of the jealousy, or call it insecurity or whatever, just this feeling of, I actually don't want, first of all, I wasn't interested in meeting other people anymore. That was like totally turned off without thinking about it. It was just not there. And also, it didn't feel like all these values I've lived in my polyamorous life the previous 5 years, didn't really apply anymore to this relationship, and it was so confusing. I didn't know what was going on. Like, did it now mean that I didn't believe in these values, or I never did, or what's like happening? You know, it was a total catalyst for my life somehow, experiencing all these new emotions that I didn't have access to before. So it took me quite some time to work through that and figure it out.
Or to digest. No?
To digest, yes.
Yeah. And because once the thing that you said, that suddenly you didn't want to do anything that you were doing before. What was his reaction to that?
Well, he went into the relationship with different expectation, right? Yeah. So while I was actually more or less secretly in the beginning moving through my own inner experience of actually I would love to commit to one relationship, he was moving his inner experience to, okay, I can actually make that work. Like, polyamory is not so bad. Okay, let me like deal with this and deal with that. So he was more actually going into the other direction, getting used to the idea of being in a polyamorous relationship. So I think it was very confusing once I could actually verbalize it in a very clear way. And that took some time because I wasn't sure in the beginning. It was, as I said, a really slow process over multiple months. But when I could verbalize it, I was at a point that I was so sure of what I wanted and the path I wanted to walk, which had a lot of implications, of course, for my core relationship, for a relationship with him. So, I think he needed some time to digest it as well. But ultimately, I knew that was, or I felt like he wanted that as well. And he said so, and I feel that's true. So, it was a long conversation, or many conversations to have.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Yeah. It is hard to process. Also, maybe a little surprised.
Yeah, very surprised, because it was contradicting to so many things I shared before, and I was very much in autopilot. I think in the beginning of sharing my values and what I believed in, it was so deeply ingrained in all my being and my actions, and I was very good at communicating. I was so transparent and. It was just what I did, like how I was. It was me, and I believed in it so much. And then suddenly things changed. So obviously I was scared to share that in the beginning. And then when I did, it was a bit very contradictory to what I said before. So I think it just took a lot of time to understand both sides, and ultimately we both had to take the time for ourselves, completely for ourselves, to figure out what we wanted. Because also for him it was now a bigger decision than just, okay, we're now monogamous. It was more like, okay, am I willing to commit to this relationship and devote myself to this personal growth we both have to do to stay in this exclusive setup.
It's like a little marriage decision already.
Yeah, kind of.
Or it sounds like that. Yeah. And what is maybe your what was like something that surprised you?
Surprised me.
Surprised you on the transition journey. I know something you core believed that this is what I want, then suddenly you was like, not so much, really, because I can imagine the whole concept. But if there was something that good or bad.
Well, the whole concept was just very complex in itself, and I think the transition from identifying with all these values of polyamory and then transitioning to a closed setup in a relationship wasn't the hardest thing, because it felt so true. Like there was really nothing like the fact that it felt true was surprising, most likely, but nothing that came after that. It was more the process that of letting go was very hard. I kind of knew, but that it will be difficult. But the intensity still surprised me, that it took such a long time to let go of multiple layers of my identity, of that core relationship, and inviting new reality, kind of, and up to very recently, which is now like quite a couple of months into that already, I still had this. It's just this nudgy inner feeling of like, okay, this is also new. Like, what's going on? Like, how did I come here in the end? Like, and looking back at this crazy journey. but nothing in concrete, like let's say that was particularly surprising. Maybe the fact that it was quite easy in just embracing that change was the surprising part on that concept.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you feel, or do you think, I think you already said it, but maybe just to recheck, do you think that the polyamorous relationship can be as deep as monogamy? Because I can, I don't know. I'm just, I don't know.
So I find it hard to say a definite it cannot be, because I don't know other people's experience and how they perceive the depth of their relationship. Speaking for myself, I feel like the relationship and the love I had with my partner of 10 years in this core relationship was very, and is still very, very deep, but it was and is of a different nature in some ways. And maybe like we could have had different tools at that time to work through misalignments, which we didn't have. But ultimately, I really feel like it's a different form of love in some ways. It's just different color, not better, not worse, not anything. It's just different. And I feel that in this monogamous setup that I'm in right now, I can experience something that I call devotional love. And maybe for some people that works also being in multiple relationships. But just from my own experience, I cannot imagine how to get to that depth by being energetically scattered, like I call it, in any way, emotionally and logistically, and it's just so difficult. And especially from a female perspective, being in this very embodied feminine side of me, there is also this primal instinct sometimes that come up, right, of safety or belonging. And I, for myself, would find it very difficult to reach this feeling of devotion to somebody if I would know that this person is not fully devoted to me. And so it's a tricky question, because there is always people for who it might work very differently.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, in my experience right now, I couldn't imagine that it will work.
Yeah.
In that same way.
Yeah, I once, because there is a show on Netflix, I'm not sure if you saw it, it's very bad, don't watch it, as I would not recommend. It's called 3 Wives and 1 Man.
I didn't see that.
No, don't do it.
It would probably make me cringe after everything I've experienced.
And that was the first time I saw like how would polyamory like work in real life, because you have your your vision, but I had no idea.
Yeah.
And they had like a little village, and they were like actually like each wife had separate house with the kids, but then the big decisions were done together. So that was nice, for example, and it was very equal, and it was quite nice because there were girls that were saying, or women, that they're still very jealous, like that is hard. And I remember the one girl, and she was, I will say girl because she was like 20 something. And she was like, and I think you said it also when we first met, she was like, because there is so much and he's so gorgeous, I cannot think that he, like the vision of owning him in some kind of way would be a limit for another people. And I literally just stopped and I was like, I'm not emotionally developed, I think.
Yeah.
Because I cannot imagine.
No. I think that for me it was also partially learning process of realizing that we can share ourselves, or I can share myself in our gorgeousness, like we're all gorgeous. In different ways, like I don't have to date someone else. I don't have to have this experience of romantic love. And I think that was a big part of my personal growth, that I felt like I could really deeply connect with others and allow myself to connect with them, but I didn't have to date them. And especially not be sexually engaged with someone else. It's just not necessary. And I mean, I would like to revise also, I think, in a very closed polycule meaning that there is basically an exclusive setup, but with multiple people involved. So let's say there are 3 people in a relationship, they might even live together, that's again a slightly different story, because you're still committed in this togetherness. And even though you have a little, like, of course you have separate relationship with each person, but nevertheless it's a more closed setup. But in a polyamorous relationship style that I lived, which was one core relationship and then maybe having another side relationships, it was never like I dated multiple people, more than 2 people at the same time. And I also, it sounds like maybe now I went on so many days, it wasn't so many in the end, because ultimately most of these 5 years I've been also in a more committed secondary relationship for some time, for 2 years of that time. And like it was more this setup of being open to see what happens. And I think that's the tricky part, because if you're always somehow open to what happens, you're inevitably taking out some of the commitment to this core relationship, however that shapes for you. So that was the tricky part.
And I think because in the former episode I was talking to one therapist about the infidelity, and when we stopped shooting, she said she was just saying that she had a client and she could not have sex with her husband for years for health issues, and so she said, okay, so well, he will have to do it anyway somehow. So she was just like, okay, so let's be open about it. So you can do whatever you want. You just have to be coming home, you know. And we were just discussing with the therapist, and she was like, imagine how self-aware and how confident you have to be to say that. Because like, as you just say, like there is like what will happen, and I think like I think I would have just maybe had it in my mind, you know. Totally. But that's the ego speaking, and so I was like, so someone is absolutely so confident that you say you can go wherever, because I'm so sure you're gonna be coming back. It
takes a lot of trust in the relationship, and I think that's built over time. And I had a lot of trust in this core relationship because we had so many moments in time that we chose each other and that we built this intense trust, which I didn't have in the new relationship. So that also could have been part of me feeling jealousy maybe in a different way. But I also felt like I want to build this core actually with this new person. I want to build this trust, and that just takes time. And also I think what changed for me is my own development in my sexuality. For me, I'm looking at any sexual union as much more sacred at this point, because I understand the exchange that happens on both sides, and if the encounter, the intimacy doesn't have much exchange, or you make it super casual, that's still fine, but it is partially, it was taking away my authenticity, and it was making me harder emotionally also, because that was part of it. And there is like part of me believing now that there is not casual sex, actually. I believe like, I mean there is obviously, but it depends what you're looking for. Like in understanding this deep surrender to somebody in a sexual union, it is something quite sacred. It can be quite sacred. And we're just so used in our society to romanticize casual sex and to make sex as this very performative act. That is sometimes maybe fulfilling sides of our ego or ourselves, instead of developing with one person actually this deep trust and surrender to experience completely different side of sexuality with one person. And even like me being very conscious and aware of these things and teaching some of them myself, I'm still also struggling, of course, with unlayering all these years of learned sexual conditioning that we have of the porn culture and how we perceived how the dynamic and the polarity should work between the masculine and the feminine. And it just takes time, and it can be done with one person, but it's very, very difficult to do it on your own and with multiple people.
I like what you said, that you don't believe in casual sex, that it doesn't really exist, because I found out through the years that I think this is just really my thing, my feeling, that sometimes we just do it, you just do it and you just leave, you know, and even though it can be appealing sometimes in some circumstances, I found out that the aftertaste is just like not nice.
Yeah.
And I have one friend, and he's a bitch, to be honest, right? Like he is like, he's so nice, but he's just a bitch. And he really is.
And you love each other?
Yeah, I really like him. He's a great human being, but man, he's just like, it's disastrous. But the respect he has for all the girls is just like, it is something and we would just like have so many discussions, and he was like, you always have to price Sandra. You always have to price. Like you always have to pay the price. You always have to take care of her. And he was like, I cannot imagine any girl just tell her just, okay, so we're done, so you leave in.
Yes.
You know, he was just like, you have to be demanding, you know, you have to, you always need something before, you always like need to dedicate her the time. Then I do what I came here to do, and also I need to take care of her afterwards, you know. And then when I realized, when I had the exam experiences, when somebody gave you, I know me and Zuzka, we call it, they provide you the service, full package service, then it's just like, it is such a, I will say, nicer connection, but also like the whole thing is just more beautiful.